Welcome to a special live edition of the Doc Talk Sports podcast presented by Betfred Sports. I'm Travis Justice. He's Dr. Rob Zatechka. And we had a little bit of confusion tonight. You're probably wondering, why in the hell are these guys starting so late? Dr. Rob was in surgery right around, I think, 7:30 or so, right? Went in about in?
I think, yeah, we wrapped up about, well, what is it right now? 8:30?
It is 8:38.
Yeah, we got done about 45 minutes ago, but the problem is I got to like trek halfway across Omaha to get to your house.
But that wasn't the problem. You were supposed to go home and do it over the computer.
I just assumed we were doing it from here. It's the basement.
It is, but see, Owen took all our equipment tonight, so this is why we're kind of set up in a really,
I'm in the guest seat.
But, you know, already we have 650 people watching as we speak. And if you would like to join in on the show, you can always give us a call at 402-543-5556. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so. Just hit the subscribe button. If you're watching on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, it's good to have you along in what is, you know, I've been doing sports journalism and covering sports for approximately since I was 16 years old. I am 53 years old. And Rob, very few things shock me. Today, I was shocked. Trev Alberts is going to Texas A&M. Look at him. He's like, maybe it's not so shocking.
Yeah, okay, so we've had Brendan Stye on before.
Yeah.
And I've had multiple conversations with Stye, and other people at the university. And Stye had voiced, this is going back to last spring when we were talking about a lot of the major projects, the coaching hires, and the financial situation at Nebraska and how Trev plays into that, the decision-making he makes around all of that, and how that has Nebraska situated moving forward. And one of the things that Brendan said last spring, I don't know if you remember, he mentioned this, and I don't remember if it was on air on the podcast. I might have had a couple of beers in me, because we sat and talked with Brendan after we recorded that podcast. One of the things he touched on was that his biggest fear in regards to Trev was a major corporation coming in and hiring him away.
Well, and Texas A&M is a major corporation,
and that's the thing, is if you look at it that way, it kind of makes sense. I didn't see it happening in the sense of it being another athletic department, another university. I truly thought at some point some big corporation was going to come in and basically say, here's your $9 million a year, here's your $15 million a year corporate CEO contract, come in, you're now the CEO for this corporation. And Trev would, okay, well, that's too much money to not jump and take. That was my worry. And I never really thought about it until Stye first said that. And so I've always had that kind of eaten away in the back of my head that, like, you know what, at some point somebody's going to come in, some corporate entity, and is going to offer him a bucket load of money. It's going to be too much to turn down. Now, I don't think, and I'd even go as far as to say I almost know that's not what happened in this situation.
This comes down to, listen, there's a lot of things that happen. I've talked to a number of people today and said Trev's kind of been looking for the last couple of months, or his name has been out there for a couple of jobs. A lot of things, especially in other college athletic departments, made him not very appealing, and that includes a $4 million buyout, which is a drop in the bucket for Texas A&M. Rob, people are lining up right now, and Jerry, we're going to get to your phone call. Jeff, we're going to get to your phone call. People just writing in on the YouTube comments already. This comes down to university leadership, Rob. It really, really does. This comes down to, and you could be mad at Trev for leaving. I understand. We can get into his legacy, what he preached and how he didn't live what he preached here when it came to loyalty. But when Ted Carter left, a big piece of Trev, I think, left with that. Ted Carter was a huge piece.
And Trev left Ted left for a reason.
Yes.
When you look at
the number of presidents the university has had over the course of time, and you think it's not a career job, but who was the guy who was from Nebraska, took the Texas job, and you're like, you're a Nebraskan, why would you take that job? He was like 2 presidents ago.
Yeah, well, I'm blanking now. I had a long day.
I get it.
At work, but it's, there is a lot of, and this is not like it's unpublicized news stories. There's a lot of political pressure on the university right now. You look at the political climate in the state, and you've got an institution that in any state, the universities tend to be, they're going to be more, the more
liberal.
It's more liberal. I mean, I'm trying to say it in a nice sense because honestly, I think institutions of learning should be. Well, and I say
You
that
can be centrist.
You can be centrist, but I think they ought to be, I think universities ought to be, you go there, you get some mindsets that get challenged, you get presented with new ideas, and you learn how to deal with that, and you learn whether or not you're going to accept those ideas or not. I think most people who are 18 to 22 years old can make up their own minds. And I think you need to get those boundaries tested a little bit mentally. I don't have a problem with the university being a little bit more centrist or left-leaning in a rightward-leaning state, vice versa. I think you ought to have those mental boundaries tested and pushed, and I think you ought to have your ideas challenged.
But what does that have to do with Trev Alberts? What does that have to do with the athletic department?
What it has to do is that if you have a lot of political influence in a state that is determining solely the leadership and the direction the university takes, it's hard to get good leaders in there who can come in and work with some degree of autonomy. And I think that's why Ted Carter left, is because he felt like his autonomy as a president of the institution, as a leader of the institution, and keep in mind, this guy's a combat vet. The guy's
he's a Top Gun dude.
He's a Top Gun pilot,
he's
for
Tom
God's
Cruise.
sake. He's a U.S. Navy admiral. Now, there's a guy who, when a guy like that is being, I don't want to say pushed out, but is feeling like his autonomy as a leader of an institution is being severely challenged by the political climate in the state, that's not necessarily the way a university system ought to work.
Lee says the TV behind you is a little distracting. Sorry, I'm watching Kansas too. I'm trying to watch Kansas basketball. It's March, man. Let us watch a little basketball.
Travis hates Iowa. He loves Kansas.
Let's go to the phones at 402-543.
Why do you hate Fran, Travis?
I don't. Well, I can tell you many reasons why I don't like Fran McCaffrey. 402-543-5556. Let's go to Jerry. Jerry, welcome to the Doc Talk podcast presented by Betfred Sports. What's going on?
What's going on is how come you guys didn't call us before? And I want to say hello to Doc Trev. He's worked on me a few times.
Yeah, I've given Jerry drugs. It's not a case of not seeing it. Jerry, it's not a case of not seeing it coming. Because here's the thing. One, this surprised everybody to some degree, other than, like I said, I voiced the fact that talking with Sty had expressed a fear, and I don't know if fear is the right word, a concern that some corporation was going to come in and hire Trev away. And I think that was something that I think people who understood some of the leadership stability that Trev brought to that athletic department in the short amount of time he was there, there's a fear of having good leaders getting hired away. And that was something that did happen. Now, my understanding is that this did happen very quickly. I know Trev got approached. I think it was it was within the last week. And I believe he took a visit to A&M. It was over the weekend. I think it was Saturday is when he took a visit there. Now, that happened really quickly. If we're talking about a span of less than a week here that this played out. And so it's hard to read into that, and it's hard to see that coming. And they did a very good job of keeping the lid on this. But I think part of the reason that made it a little bit easier to keep it quiet is the fact that I don't think most people looked at Trev, given the fact that he's alumni at Nebraska, would leave. I think people looked at this and said, okay, this has got to be this guy's dream job. He's the athletic director at his alma mater. People just don't see this kind of move coming. If it did happen, like I said, it was kind of like what Brendan had voiced, where it would have been somewhere in the private sector corporate world.
Still there, Jerry?
Well, how's this going to affect? How's this going to affect Coach Rule? And who's going to be the next athletic director? They're not going to. Never mind. I'm not going to go into this.
Yeah, I mean, we'll kind of move over to who we think could be or would be the new athletic director. I mean, in terms of how it affects Rule,
the coach though.
It doesn't affect Coach Rule at all. The dude's under an 8-year contract. To buy him out right now would cost a shitload of money.
Go ahead.
Well,
I mean,
what if he leaves?
About him being, what if he's not happy? That's what I'm saying.
He can't quit. You're going to have to. What's he going to do? Quit coaching? Who's going to pay? Who's going to make the buyout right now?
I'm not worried.
What do you think the buyout is?
Rule's a good coach.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Matt Rule's been around this long enough, right? And Jerry, thanks for the phone call. And what I'm going to say about that is, he came for Trev Alberts, he came for Ted Carter, but at the end of the day, Matt Rule left his team at Temple. Matt Rule left his team at Baylor. He understands the nature of the business. Athletic directors and coaches are no different. That you move on for opportunities. If anybody knows what it's like to move on, coaches understand what that's about. You can't. It's not personal. It's business. Listen, there's going to be a bunch, and I know you've been on the phone today, and some of you have off the record that you can't display. Whatever happened, though, is going to make a good book. Whatever has happened over the last couple of weeks is going to make a really good book. Fans are pissed off, Rob, and they should be, because there's no transparency in this process. Zero transparency. Nobody saw this coming. And then you have a guy and I like Trev. I've known Trev for a number of years, but you have a guy that preaches loyalty. It's the best job in the country. Are you in? You're trying to raise a boatload of money to build a new stadium or half a stadium, and then you just fucking leave. That's weird.
And it is. And the thing that's bothersome for me is, now here's the thing. If there was a reason, well, I shouldn't say if, there obviously was a reason for leaving, but I would have liked to have seen this addressed in a more personal manner. Yeah. Okay. Go answer some questions. I mean, he released that statement.
And here's the statement. Earlier today, I informed interim president Koberek that I was resigning my position as director of athletics to accept the same role at Texas A&M. I recognize the timing of this change is not ideal, and I apologize in advance for any negative impact it might have. I'm grateful for the 15 years that I've had the privilege to serve both the University of Nebraska Omaha and my alma mater, UNL. My family and I want to say thank you for all your special memories that we were able to create together. Nebraska is well positioned for evolving changes in our industry. Tough decisions will need to be made, and unity of vision and high execution will be necessary, but I'm confident that the leadership in Nebraska will rise to the occasion. Nebraska athletics is full of high character, hardworking, talented staff and coaches, and it was an honor to partner with them as we experienced unprecedented success. He didn't say anything in there.
The one thing that I think he touches on is the university leadership. And that's something that I think did affect him. When you talk about the reasons he left, I mean, a lot of people I mentioned earlier, like some big corporation coming in and offering a huge amount of money. It wasn't a money thing. Now he's going to make his money at A&M. I have zero doubt about that.
I mean, he's making 1.7 in Nebraska. He was going to be up to 2.1, 2.6 somewhere in like 2 years.
Yeah. I saw 2.1, and then I can't remember what that next increment was after that. I'm convinced A&M is going to pay him a nice salary. I'm sure he will do quite well there.
Got a 5-year deal.
But that's not the reason for going. And I think a lot of it is just stability and leadership. I mean, we talked about that already when Ted Carter left. You've still got an interim president down in Lincoln, and I love Chris Kubarik. I mean, you've got a guy that I think came into a little bit of a tough situation. He's in that interim role. He's currently not one of the candidates to be the permanent president, but I think he'd be the best candidate for it. I mean, I look at what he's done. If you follow him on social media, if you follow him within the media, you've got a guy in Chris who is out there trying to represent this university, and he's trying to represent all constituents of the university. And the guy's an incredibly positive guy. I love the fact that he takes a very public approach to being the interim president of the university. And that's something that we got out of Carter that I absolutely loved, is you had a guy that tried to lead from the front in Carter. I think Chris is trying to do the exact same thing. But I think when you've gone this long with some divisiveness within the Board of Regents and within the state political climate on the whole, it's left us with a little bit of a leadership vacuum at the university. And I think that's the reason why Trev left. When you look at A&M, you've got, is it Welsh or Walsh? I'm forgetting the guy's name. He's the president of the A&M, Welsh, president of the A&M system. You've got a fairly solid, well-established president who, at least at this point in time, does not look like he's going anywhere.
402-543-5556. Let's go to Jeff. Jeff, welcome to the Doc Talk podcast. What's up, man?
Hey.
Hey, got to turn your radio down.
How are you guys doing?
Good.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Are you still hearing?
Yeah, I got you.
Oh, heck yeah.
Okay, you got me. Okay. So, all right. So, I think the doctor threw me in for a loop. I'm fucking pissed off. By the way, can I cuss on this show?
You just did. So you're good.
Yeah. No fucking FCC
I
here.
mean, 2,500 people are watching right now. They don't care.
I don't care. So here's my issue, right? Okay, so yeah, there's a little bit of a lag between the phone and the YouTube, but so Doc threw me. I'm sorry, I'm just going to be a little kind of drawn out here because there's so many thoughts in my head. I wanted to call into the show, and I had a specific set of questions I wanted to talk about, but the Doc threw me in for a loop when he started talking about the political climate. My daughter goes to Princeton University, the wokest of the wokest liberal left-wing institutions in America, right?
Oh, it is.
So
I mean, and
most
are. Now here's the thing. I'm not saying it has to be all the way to one side or the other. I'm just saying you go to college, you get some ideas and morals challenged a bit, and getting those moral and ideal and intellectual challenges is not a bad thing.
Yes,
but what I'm saying is that when you've got a very good, very strong leader, that leader has to have some degree of autonomy. And when you've got a Navy admiral, you've got a Top Gun pilot, you've got a combat veteran who is literally saying the politics in this state are not giving me the autonomy to be the leader of this university. Yeah. That's a problem.
Doc, I understand that, right? So I just said my daughter goes to Princeton, so I've lived that. I'm living that. I understand it. But I want to move on from that because you check my Twitter profile, Jeff Gambino. I'm a conservative. I'm not like right-wing MAGA or whatever, but I have conservative values. But what I'm saying is, like Travis was saying earlier, right? What the fuck does that have to do with Trev Alberts leaving, right? So my question here.
Well, in the political climates.
Let him pick. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Keep going, Jeff.
Okay. No, I'll keep going. I respect Doc. I know he's had a hard day with the surgery, all that. By the way, Doc, I think you and I went to class together. Maybe I was a year older than you, but whatever. But,
we did. We had some overlap down there.
If we saw each other face to face, yeah. Anyway, but what I'm saying is that this is Mr. Nebraska heritage legacy, Trev Alberts' name plastered on North Stadium. How do you turn your back on that? I don't understand that. How do you muster up whatever courage to turn your back on all that? That is the part that I think Husker Nation is grappling with. And I get the whole Aggie, gay jackass stuff. By the way, I'm Jeff Gambino from Austin, man. I'm surrounded by Aggies. I know what they're like. Why do you leave what you have at Nebraska to go to a dysfunctional place like Texas A&M? It's way worse than Nebraska.
Jeff, it's a good question, and you brought up the legacy. I'm going to let you go so you can keep listening on YouTube. I appreciate it. I'm going to bring up the legacy. Tom Chattel's got a column coming out in the Omaha World Herald tomorrow. He said that Trev destroyed his legacy. I don't disagree with him.
And that's the thing is I think it does. There's a heck of a tarnish there when you have somebody who, again,
yeah.
I don't know. That's a little bit of an overstatement. It's a little bit. Here's the thing. It's not like Trev was not a polarizing guy to begin with within the University of the Nebraska system.
Rob, I don't disagree with that.
No,
but people had forgiven him for the UNO stuff.
He already had some tarnish on that legacy.
But you know what? He got brass polish and he cleaned the shit up. Here's the deal. People loved what he did from day one when he went in. He'd made no mistakes. The dude did not trip up. He was polished. He said the right things. He did the right things. He hired the right people. He had a vision for the stadium. He'd done all the right things. And then when you preach loyalty and all this stuff, and then all of a sudden you get socked to the side of the face, people won't forgive that for a number of years. They won't.
And that I do understand. I guess I'm not saying, I guess I'm trying to say it's hard to completely.
Is that your phone? It is. He had surgery today, so people are wondering, what, he may have to take this, may not have to take this. People are wondering, by the way, why our camera angle is so messed up. Here's the deal. Rob, I didn't think Rob was going to be here tonight. I thought Rob, what we were going to do, he was going to be at his house, and we were going to do this kind of a back and forth on his computer, and that's why he was running late, and then he shows up, and I'm like, what are you doing here? And so I wasn't prepared. My son Owen is a video shoot doing some other things, so we weren't able to set our cameras up tonight. But Rob is, so I look extremely large, and Rob looks smaller than me today. So that's the way it looks on YouTube. So that's the way it looks like this. But going back to legacy, it may take 20, 30 years for people to come around. If it doesn't work out for Nebraska, he'll never be forgiven.
No, I get it. I guess I'm just saying there's a segment. Trev's a polarizing guy, whether you love him or hate him. And the fact of the matter is that I don't know if this completely tarnishes him, but it still keeps him as somewhat of a polarizing guy. But that's something that already existed to a degree within his consciousness in the state of Nebraska.
Man, Rob, I mean, the people on here, and I mean, there's so many comments
and
now,
get it.
I can't even put them up.
Like in between cases, I'm following Twitter. And so I'm trying to say that I understand the angst against him. I'm not sure this completely tarnishes his reputation. At the same time, the thing I guess I'm more bothered by is the fact that it comes out in the form of an email.
That's another thing. But what's the real way to do it, right? If you're down there, was he in Lincoln today? Was he in College Station today?
God, I would assume he's in College Station, but that's an assumption on my part.
So it's just one of the things. If you're not here, here's the whole thing, because we didn't get the official word till 5:30. I think it was.
I'd have to go back and look.
You know what's going through my mind this whole time when it was like, okay, because Jim Rose is like, okay, folks, this thing may not be a done deal yet. All I'm thinking is,
there was way too much smoke for there to not be fire.
I knew there was fire, but all of a sudden you hear, oh, hold on, this and other people, and I'm like, oh, this is like Houston fucking nut sitting on the tarmac in Fayetteville, coming to work for Steve Peterson. That's all I can think of. This is a Houston nut situation again. We're just waiting for him to either get on the plane or not get on the plane.
Yeah, but I mean, if that was, here's the other thing I guess I would say in that regard. Moment we saw the smoke, in my mind, I thought it was a done deal. And the reason I say that is because I think Trev is smart enough to not have a Houston nut type situation. If it was, he wouldn't go do that, put a whole big cloud of smoke up, and then back off of that. I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
I don't see that happening. If it was I'm going to maybe take this job. No, I'm not. He's not going to do that. He would figure out a way to very quietly look at the situation, potentially interview, investigate everything, make a very calculated, informed decision, make the decision, and that's going to be it. And I think that's what happened. I don't think there was ever a waffling on his part.
Dan says, Trev's a quitter when things get tough. See ESPN when he didn't get his way. Do you think he's a quitter?
Again, I don't know. I don't know what's
Trev personally.
I don't know what's in Trev's heart and mind. I played with him, and on the football field, the guy wasn't a quitter. Now, here's the other thing too: is I think there's also got to be a degree of, situations with previous jobs. Are you saying anybody who is in a job that you may not have liked the dynamics of the job, that you're a quitter for leaving a particular job just because even if it's a good job, doesn't mean you gotta like it? Were you a quitter for leaving Fox 42 when the dynamic got tough at Fox 42? Because it's a shit job. You should have stayed and made it better because you're a quitter for having left.
They paid me $30,000 a year. I wasn't going to work for $30,000 a year anymore. I got a pay raise.
Quitter.
No.
But here's the thing. Also, that's also the thing on the transfer portal and people who transfer. You're not necessarily quitting. You may be looking at, hey, I might be able to go someplace else and get more playing time. Are you quitting? You should have stuck it out and worked harder. Well, no, guys, these guys are already working their asses off. That just because you jumped in the transfer portal might be because instead of getting X number of snaps, you wanted more snaps. Maybe you wanted to get snaps at all.
402-543-5556. Let's go back to the phones. That's where Doug is. Doug, welcome to the Doc Talk podcast. What's up, Doug?
Hey, not much. How you guys doing?
Good.
Hey, question here now. I know everybody comes in like, oh, I know Rob, I know Travis and all that and everything. But question is, so everybody thinks it comes back to that lawsuit. What's your take on that? Is he running from it or?
No, are you talking about the women's basketball situation?
Yeah. Yes.
I don't think so. And the reason I say that is because despite, I thought, I got to double check, was Trev actually named personally in the lawsuit?
He was named personally. I had heard that, and this is just hearsay, but this is what we do. That he wasn't happy that he wasn't getting full support from the university. Like, hey, you got my back here, right? Because everything I'd heard that he'd done the correct things in this thing. That Trev actually took the proper steps.
Now, and that would be my assumption would be that I hope he would in that situation. Here's the other thing. Just kind of bigger picture to your question of, is he trying to get away from this lawsuit? Guess what?
It ain't going away.
Leaving doesn't remove you from the lawsuit. Moving to Texas doesn't remove you from a lawsuit. That's still going to play out regardless of where he's at, regardless of where he's in a university administrative role. Not being at Nebraska anymore does not change that.
Thanks,
right.
Thanks.
I agree with that. And,
go ahead.
And one thing, just real quick is that, he's, people say he's running away from it or, he doesn't like the administration, but technically he's gotten everything that he's ever wanted. He hired Rule. He, is getting the renovation, of Memorial Stadium and everything. So, I guess there's more to it than what we all know, as you guys probably, think the same thing.
I think there's more to it. I do. And I talked to Tom Chattel tonight. I tried to get him to come on with us, and he's like, we all need answers. And even Tom said, we need answers. I don't disagree with that. This is just leaving people hanging.
And that's the thing that I think makes this tough. Now, I can damn near guarantee it. Trev's never going to come back, do an interview, do a press conference to say, hey, here's what's going on. Here's why I left. That's not going to happen. It's going to be a situation where some of it'll filter out from some, I'm sure from some interviews with people down at UNL over the next 6-9 months, year, whatever. There's going to be a lot of stuff we're never going to find out. And I think most of that's just, there's going to be a ton of speculation, and that's what makes situations like this difficult. But I will say this, you can't run from a lawsuit though. And so him leaving has zero effect. So, I mean, people who are saying, oh, he's running away from the lawsuit, zero truth to that.
Thanks, Doug. We got more calls, so I got to get to them. Appreciate it, man.
Which I got a couple of people have messaged me. The number to call in,
402-543-5556. 402-543-5556 is the number to call in. Let's go to Dave. Dave, welcome to the Doc Talk podcast. What's up?
543 or 453?
543.
Gotcha.
What's up, Dave?
Hey, thanks. Yeah, thanks for taking my call, Travis. Rob there. I missed the first 20 minutes of your program. I haven't heard this thrown out there today, but I think this is a straight power play for the future of college football. There's been a lot of significant talking heads over the last few years that we need a commissioner of college football when the NCAA collapses. I think that's imminent, and we all know that's even more likely than not here sooner rather than later. And I think when it happens, probably in the next 2 to 4 or 5 years, Trev will be in his mid to upper 50s. He'll have been an athletic director in both the Big Ten and now the SEC, probably the only sitting person to do so. And he will be the right guy to unify college football and become the Roger Goodell of all of college football.
Dude, I could buy into that.
It's a bold statement.
That's a bold statement. You know,
I don't disagree with that. I mean, now in terms of his motivations going to A&M or an SEC school, I mean, one of the things, dude, that I would probably throw out there as well is that when Ted Carter did leave and went to Ohio State, there was a lot of speculation that Trev was going to follow Ted Carter. But I think a lot of the reason he didn't, and I think this got voiced on occasion, was that Trev would never leave to go to a competing school within the same conference.
And I don't think Ted Carter hired Ross Bjork. It was the old president before Ted Carter got there that hired Ross Bjork. So Ross Bjork left Texas A&M and then went to the Ohio State University. And I don't think
it does seem like a weird little triangle there, but I don't think that actually, I don't think that is part of some bigger conspiracy here. I think Trev wouldn't have gone to a Big Ten school. I think he went to an SEC school, not necessarily to set himself up for a future commissionership. I think it was more just because he saw a reasonably strong president in place. They approached him, is my understanding. I don't think Trev sought this out. Again, I don't have that, like I said, and coming out of Trev's mouth directly, but I think could he be trying to set himself up for something like that in the future? Possibly. I think if he had stayed at Nebraska, I think he would still be in position for that.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. That's a good call, man. I like that. I mean, and he's not wrong. College football in 10 years is going to look a hell of a lot different than it is today.
Okay, college football today looks a hell of a lot different than it did 2 years ago.
That's fair. 402-543-5556. Let's go to Tom. Tom, welcome to the Doc Talk podcast. What's up, Tom?
Hey, thanks, guys. Calling in from DC. I'm kind of seeing things from afar, and I'm not really into the whole dynamics between the board and the president. But why are they kind of dragging their feet so long and getting a new president? I know that this kind of dysfunction, it seems, between the board of regents, the AD, and the president kind of, seems like one of the only sort of real reasons that this could be causing him to take off, considering it seems like he's been so loyal to the program for so long. I don't know if you guys have any insight. I'm sorry if this question's already been asked, but I'll just hang up, and thanks, guys. I really enjoy listening to you guys.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.
I mean, I think that's kind of hitting the nail on the head. Again, I've talked to a few friends that are down at UNL right now, and kind of the gist of what I'm hearing is that it's a little bit of the leadership vacuum. The fact that you've got an interim president who, again, I'm going to reiterate, I think has done a very good job in that role. But also my understanding is that the guy who's in that role has been doing a very good job in that role, and Chris Kubarik is not one of the candidates to be the permanent president at the university. There's divisiveness within the decision makers on who the next president is going to be.
That's the board of regents then.
Yeah. And there is a rift, is my understanding, in trying to make that decision. We've gone a while here without a president far longer than I think the university should have gone without a president. And that speaks to that inability of the Board of Regents to come to a decision and name a new president that I think is going to be an effective leader, or even as an effective leader as A, Ted Carter, or B, Chris Kubarak.
We have over 4,000 people watching on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook right now. So if you're tuning in, thank you so much. We appreciate your support.
And Trav promises we're getting to all 4,000 phone calls.
Well, I mean, there's so many comments right now, which is super cool that you guys are all taking part of it. I'm trying to get to some of them. But if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, just do so. That way you're able to get the content. Also, we're going to put a replay of this up on the podcast channel as soon as this is over. So that'll be on Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, all those places. So you'll be able to listen to it on repeat as well. 402-543-5556. Let's go to Cody. Give it a second, Cody. It's coming through. Cody, you there? Welcome to the Doc Hawk Podcast. What's up?
Not much. How we doing, boys?
Good.
How are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. Could not be happier to see someone hitting the road.
Cody's one of my wrestling buddies.
So I guess after 13 years, he still hasn't learned how to tell people face to face he's leaving.
Oh, that's brutal. And that's something that I mean, I'm not going to lie, that does bother me. And Travis, you and I touched on that just a little bit ago.
Yeah, but you're talking about the wrestling situation at UNO. And I know that when Mike Denny was let go, John Christensen, who was the chancellor at UNO at the time, wanted to do it because John and Mike had known each other for a number of years. So Trev let John do it. It wasn't the best way to do it because the story was coming out in the Omaha World Herald the next day. It was Trev who let Pat Burns know that that football was going away, and John Christensen was the one who was supposed to let Mike Denny know. And he did, but he called him in Kearney right after they won a national title.
Was it Christensen who called him,
yes,
or Trev?
No, it was Christensen. So
it was Christensen.
Yeah.
They knew that it was coming. They knew something was going on because neither Alberts or Christensen had talked to Denny or Manili or Higdon or any of those guys 2 weeks prior.
Yep. So I mean,
it's a messaging thing, and that's one of those things where when you're dealing with situations like that, I do feel messaging is incredibly important, and that was not done well. But I also feel like this wasn't either.
Is there any good way to do it? Is there any way to, because people are going to be pissed no matter what. There's no good way to do it.
I agree with that, but I mean, if via an email, now here's, I guess the thing that's disappointing to me is the university staff themselves were told in an email.
But what are you going to do? Come back and say, hey guys, I'll see you later? That's like Bo Pelini grabbing the team, taking them down to an off-the-site thing and motherfucking everybody.
Right? You go down and you have a meeting and you don't motherfuck everybody. You come back and you tell them, hey, here's what happened. Here's the situation. And I made a decision that I felt was best for me. And that's an incredibly uncomfortable thing to do. But at least you're going to stand up and put that message out there to people as opposed to just, hey, here's an email.
So what? Two other things, and I'll make them quick because I know there's a lot.
Can we turn the call volume up? I had a couple messages here that people can't hear the callers very well.
Go ahead, Cody.
How much of this too was right before Ted Carter leaving? He had made all those changes to where Ted was taking on a whole lot more of the AD duties to leave Trev and more of just dealing with the donors and doing fundraising duties, where maybe Trev wanted more power.
And I don't think it was more of it wasn't so much of a responsibility or a power thing. It was, so Trev answers to, and I got to be honest with you, if you put the hierarchy out here in front of me, it makes it a heck of a lot easier. It was that hierarchy above Trev that changed. And that was something that I'm not sure the exact reasons for that, but it was something that I think it made Trev uncomfortable. I think it made Ted Carter uncomfortable as well, too. He was put in charge of people that he felt should have had more autonomy within the leadership structure of the university. And that's what good leaders like. They like having people working underneath them who have autonomy. And that the autonomy was taken, I believe, was taken away from Ted Carter. And I think Ted felt like the autonomy of the people that were working under him was removed as well, too.
Right,
So I don't think it was.
Appreciate the last thing I'll say to you guys is Hunter Yurachek for the new AD. You guys have a good night.
Who'd he say?
Arkansas. Arkansas's AD.
I know I'm gonna make a lot of people mad with this. I still want Jamie Pollard to get the job. Jamie Pollard is at Iowa State. His daughter went to Nebraska. Believe it or not, Jamie Pollard's daughter went to Nebraska, so he's got a little bit of. But Jamie's a visionary.
He's a Midwestern guy.
He's a Wisconsin guy. He's a visionary. You know, Ed Stewart's name's been thrown around. He's at USC right now. That may not be a bad fit.
I got my easy vote, but this is like super easy.
Yeah.
Doug Ewald.
Yeah, Doug would be good. Doug's been in the basement before. Doug has sat right there.
He has.
Yeah.
But you got a guy who, A, knows people, knows the donors, knows the structure within the university system. You've got a guy who the numbers, the finances behind it in terms of understanding that aspect of it, which the one thing, it's not just the one thing, but one of the things I really did like about Trev was how well he understood the financial situation of the world of college athletics today and all the moving parts of that. And Doug understands that. Now, the other thing,
Doug's a financial genius.
The guy is.
He knows numbers better than anybody in the whole world.
And actually, my bigger worry is that we're going to see, like in a week, Doug Ewald recently hired as the CFO of the Texas A&M.
I think it's a strong possibility if he's told he's not a candidate. There's nothing to stick around for.
But he's a guy that I look at. Now, here's the other thing about Doug. We've sat and talked with Doug. That guy has a ton of integrity. When you look at what he went through as the state tax commissioner?
State tax commissioner.
I mean, there's a job in which politically you can get pulled in some really interesting directions. And I thought he was a guy that talk about maintaining he did a better job of not getting pulled in all of those directions. Anyway, I think he would be an outstanding athletic director. He's been in that world now.
Well, since
Trev hired him on in that role at UNO. Kind of. He was a little bit more he was more not necessarily a Trev guy. He was the UNO guy.
Yeah, he was the UNO financial guy. It would be there's a lot of possibilities here. And a lot of people who listen to this podcast are already coming in because they've watched this, they've listened to these podcasts. Joe Mowgli are getting a lot of votes right now. Joe Mowgli is getting a ton of votes.
Dude, he would be an outstanding AD.
But here's the deal. Joe Mowgli is not coming back to Nebraska. He lives in Hilton Head. He loves his Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. He has basically
he's an East Coast guy.
And he has complete control over the football program. He don't need the money. Okay. He does not need the money. Joe,
do you know what Joe has?
Joe ain't coming back.
Do you know what Joe has?
Everything.
Don't give a fuck money.
He does. Joe has don't give a fuck money, as Rob says, and he'll have comments about this, but
he'll have actually. He would be a great interview on this situation. But yeah, Joe would be a guy that I look at. Why would he bother with this? Come back as an athletic director to be beholden to university politics, state politics, when he doesn't have to do that with Coastal Carolina.
Here's one I haven't seen before. Oh, cursing. Bye. Somebody left us because we cursed. We cursed, Rob.
Have they not listened to the podcast
They must have not
before?
listened to the podcast before.
This has been one of our cleaner ones.
It has been one of our cleaner ones. Yes, in case you are just tuning in, we swear from time to time, just to be aware of it. 402-543-5556. Let's go back to the phones. Kyle, welcome to the Doc Talk podcast. What's up?
Gentlemen, can you hear me?
Yep, gotcha.
I would like to put a sorry Dave out before I start everything.
Okay.
I love it.
Listener, love the pod, guys. Wanted to go one way. You guys kind of went the other with the AD, so I kind of wanted to pick your brains on some of that. Obviously, we have a huge power structure issue at the University of Nebraska. Dr. Rob, I think you understand that. I think you see that. I think you know way more than you're willing to put out on the radio, and I understand and I respect that. Joe Moglia, that's laughable. That guy is a billionaire, smart genius that will never come to the dumpster fire that is Lincoln, Nebraska. My question is could we get Ed Stewart, who was almost in charge of the Big 12, took a step down at the USC, just to come back home? I mean, I realize people are going to scream, it's a former Husker, blah, 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 but
so is Trev.
I think we need to have some loyalty. Well, I think we need to have some loyalty to how it was built when you were there to understand how the unique situation that Nebraska works. Because obviously Sean Eichhorst didn't work. Obviously Harvey Perlman, who was from TO's legacy, didn't work. You need to have somebody that understands Nebraska's unique. Nebraska is its own special way. We have our own special recruiting issues, and that we work best when we have congruity and we have consistency. And I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on that? Both of you. Because Trev, you've been on fire all night from what I can catch on the YouTube before it breaks in and out from Central Kansas. And by the way, your Hawkeye's still missing a lower beat.
I know. I don't know why. It was custom made and they missed the lower beak. Here, and people hate it when I compare Iowa to Nebraska. The reason Iowa's been consistent, listen, Iowa doesn't win national championships in football. I get it. But the reason I think they've been consistent over the last 20 years, Rob, are really, you could go back since the Hayden Fry years. There's been some down years, but they
were very consistent under Fry.
You've had 4 athletic directors in Bump Elliott, Bob Bowlesby, Gary Barta, and now Beth Getz since like 1979. That's impressive. Consistency. And then you've had consistency in coaching. Hayden Fry, Kirk Ferentz. There's just been consistency. Look at Iowa State now. This is why I bring up Jamie Pollard. Jamie Pollard has done a good job. It took him a while, but now he's got TJ Otzelberger. He's got Matt Campbell. But the consistency there of culture starts with the athletic director. Coaches come and go, but consistency and culture in athletic departments start with the athletic director. And I think Jamie Pollard has done that. And when Bob Devaney was there, Bill Byrne, there's where you had the consistency. The shit show started with Steve Peterson coming to town, and it's been downhill ever since.
100%.
It is, and it's been
100%.
Which, and I would add to that. I mean, I thought Devaney did a very good job as an athletic director. I hit the door. Devaney was still the AD. I was there when Bill Byrne came in. I thought Bill was an outstanding athletic director. It was a little bit of a culture shift. I mean, both within the university as well as how that move was viewed from outside the university. But that was a little bit of a culture shift because you kind of went with a little bit of Devaney worked at Nebraska culturally. I mean, got a Michigan guy, a Wyoming guy who all of a sudden ends up in Lincoln.
But when he was an athletic director, it was different than it is today.
100%. So there was, was the culture shift when Byrne came in. But I thought Byrne did an outstanding job.
Yeah. He did. There would be no Husker Vision without Bill Byrne.
Correct.
There would be no Sweets without Bill Byrne. Now, there would be today because that's the evolution. But he was ahead of his time as far as marketing. They called him Dollar Bill Byrne, right? I mean, because he thought about the dollars. He knew he was a differentiator because he knew college football was moving in the way of financial resources.
Which is funny because when I look back at Bill Byrne now compared to today's athletic departments, if you brought Bill Byrne back, people would view him as sort of this homespun good old boy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how he
Tide
would
Wad.
come across in this day and age. At the time, that was a massive cultural shift in thinking of how to run an athletic department.
Do you think Bill Byrne played a part in Trev Alberts going to Texas A&M? Because don't forget, Bill Byrne
Went
left
to Texas A&M. I doubt Bill Byrne played a role. Well, shoot, I don't know. I mean, I actually don't. I haven't heard anything to that extent. My assumption would be is that there was probably some, I'm going to call them university structural dynamics that existed then, that existed now, that played into a similar decision-making process. So,
hey, Kyle, thanks for the phone call, man. Appreciate it.
Gentlemen, you got one more for me?
Yeah, I got one more for you.
Okay, my question is this Trev Alberts leaving for Texas A&M his last bastion of hope to try and point out that the University of Nebraska system is screwed up?
it's a symptom of it. I don't think it's him trying to point it out.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, again, do you have some structural issues from a leadership standpoint at the university currently? I do believe you do have that right now. It's completely evident. I mean, this isn't something that I'm saying this and people are going, what the hell's Rob talking about here? This isn't anything new. And again, I'm not saying you have to go out and take a political stance on this, but it doesn't change the fact that, again, you had an outstanding president who left. He had reasons for leaving. Here's the other thing too. It's not like Ohio State doesn't have issues. Ted Carter left and went to a place that potentially might have bigger issues than Nebraska.
I've heard he's not happy already. I've actually heard he's not happy.
I don't think he is. And I don't think we're getting him back. But that doesn't change the fact that he left for reasons. And since he's left, we haven't named a permanent president. There's I'm not sure power struggle, but there's a divisiveness within the Board of Regents in terms of figuring out who to name as the next president. All the while, you've got a really good candidate in the interim role who's probably not getting it, who a lot of people think should get it.
402-543-5556. Who's this?
Probably not getting
This is Dave.
Hey, Dave, what's going on? Hey, can you turn your computer down, please?
Yeah, sure.
All right, yeah, because believe it or not, because of the internet, and there's now over 5,000 people watching as we speak, there's going to be a little bit of delay between Rob and I being live and the YouTube. So what do you got there, Dave?
Yeah, I want to talk about finances. How is this going to affect donations to the university foundation and the athletic department? With the lack of stability, we've lost a president as of January the 1st, and now we've lost Trev. It's not a pretty picture, and I think there's some loyal donors, myself included. I've donated to the foundation and the athletic department for years myself, and I'm going to have a talk, coming to Jesus talk with people back at the university. I don't live in Nebraska, but I'm going to have to talk to them before I make another donation at the end of this year. So that's something that these people that are running the university right now better start thinking about. What's going to happen to the money flow coming in? Now, they're going to continue to support the stadium expansion in the South End and all of the other money funds that the university requires. So I'll hang up and watch you on the screen.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Well, and that's something that I think,
listen,
people asked, did Trev do this to try and make a statement? I don't think Trev was trying to make a statement. Trev leaving was a symptom of some of these issues. And again, when you don't have a strong leadership, everybody moving in the same direction at an organization like a university, there are going to be some problems in terms of keeping now. And again, you've got some issues too, where you've got the boosters, you've got NIL, you've got 1890, you've got people trying to decide who we give money to and where that money's going. That creates a lot of variables in this process. But if you don't have a strong, unified leadership, everybody moving in that same direction, it does hurt the booster donations. And it does. I mean, and when you've got some massive projects like the stadium project coming up, you're finishing out the football facility, you're trying to decide what to do with NIL. Not having strong leadership in place damages that. It's hurtful for that. And if you're an athletic director, that shows. I think that Trev leaving is a symptom of that.
Well, and here's the deal: that stadium expansion, they said it was going to cost $300 million. It's going to cost probably double that. Okay, you're talking over $500 million for what they want to do down there, and you probably have regents that aren't on board. You certainly have faculty that's not on board, and so there's where that non-unification comes from, and it pisses me off. And my co-host in the morning and I disagree about this wholeheartedly, but at the end of the day, at the University of Nebraska, the athletic department is the identity of the university. It is the identity of the university.
Now, you're talking about Nebraska or in general?
Nebraska.
100%.
Yes. At Alabama, the athletic department is the identity of the university. And so you can bitch about it all you want, but you're talking about a program that's going to be bringing in $100 million a year. There's not another program. Well, most of it's at the Med Center can bring in $100 million a year because they're getting grants. But at the end of the day, there's not a program at UNL that's bringing in $100 million consistently, and they'll do it consistently. And you let athletics do what they want. I really do believe that. Now, should there be checks and balances? Absolutely. But that's your identity. And if Nebraska football is winning, the enrollment grows. And everything kind of falls into place after that. My daughter works at the University of Mississippi. When she went there, Lane Kiffin wasn't there yet. They had 2 dorms that weren't even being used. Rob, Lane Kiffin shows up, and all of a sudden they are building massive dorms. There's a housing shortage for everybody in Oxford. Price of living is going up. That's what an athletic department can do for a university. It's an influx of cash from most everywhere. It's crazy. But now I sit there and go, if you're a donor like Dave is, you're going, what am I giving my money to? Trev's giving up and leaving in the middle before this thing even starts. I haven't even broke ground on this thing yet. How fast does it move forward? Do you think it still moves forward?
I think it's going to move forward. God, they're going to have to shore up some things again from a leadership standpoint. 100%. Because if I'm a booster right now, I don't know who's running the show down there.
Either do I.
And that's the thing that I think is kind of painful about this is that, again, when you look at what you just said about the fact that, and you say at Nebraska, dude, the face of Notre Dame is the goddamn athletic department.
Absolutely. Yes.
It's an amazing academic institution. What do you think when you say Notre Dame? I think Newt Rockne.
I think play like a champion today.
Exactly. You think the athletic department, who was probably over the last few years the most stable leader at that university?
Jack Swarbrick?
No, at Nebraska.
At Nebraska?
Nebraska.
Most stable leader, Trev Alberts.
It's Trev.
Yeah. 100. And that's why people.
Now, I say that. I'm sure and I don't mean this to be disrespectful, but you've got a lot of deans and directors of various colleges down there who are going to hear that question, say, okay, well, I've been here for 8 years. I've been here for
I don't give a shit
20 years. That's great. And I understand that. And that's a good thing. But the biology department is not the face of the university.
Not even close.
The English department's not the face of the university. The law college is not the face of the university. The athletic department is.
402-543-5556. Let's go to Steamboat Springs, Colorado. Who are we talking to?
Hey, this is Z, guys. How's it going?
What's up, man?
Hey, I just, what the actual fuck? You guys are talking a little bit over my head, So bring it down a bit, like make it parallel.
This is what happens when you talk to a
just...
cerebral human being. All right. I mean, this guy, he talks over my head all the time.
I've had 0 beer tonight. I'm drinking Pib Zero.
Listen,
for God's sake.
I've had a full glass of bourbon, and I'm so jet lagged. It's not even funny.
Normally I need like at least 3 beers to bring me down a little bit.
I got back from Italy at 10:30 last night. I was up doing a radio show at 4:30 this morning, and I went to work, and I still haven't slept.
I don't feel sorry
I'm jet
for
lagged.
you.
Sorry. Go ahead, Z.
Well, Travis, just try the Jameson Stout Edition. It's Jameson aged in Guinness barrels, super smooth. I'm having one right now. Cheers.
Nice.
Yeah, dumb it down a little bit. I wake up this morning, I hear this stuff. I'm like, what would make me walk out of my job? Hate my boss, hate my coworkers. I could get paid live golf money to go live in Texas. Like, draw me some kind of cheers. Draw me some kind of parallel with like, what would you guys met him? You've talked to him. What would make him put his pen down and walk out the door?
I think so. That's a great question, and I think at the end of the day, I think Trev is a very driven person. He definitely has a vision. And again, you may not like his vision, but he's got a vision for what he wants to do in a leadership role of an athletic department. And I think he felt like in any leadership role, in any situation like that, you need people around you. You need leaders above you. And I think he felt like he didn't have that. That's my opinion. When I look at the situation down in Lincoln right now, I think Trev Alberts looked around and felt like he didn't have, one of the earlier callers had the question, hey, actually, Trev, it was you. Did Trev feel like he didn't have the university's backing or support when it came to the women's basketball lawsuit? I don't know if it's the fact that Trev's sitting there going, well, I don't have the university's support. He's looking around going, I don't know who there is who would be supporting me. I've got an interim president.
Yeah,
I've got a really strong president who is this great guy, very visible. People loved him at the university. The people in the state of Nebraska loved him who left because he felt like there was a compromising of his own autonomy, that he didn't have the power to make the decisions he felt like he needed to make. He didn't feel like the people underneath him were given the autonomy to make the decisions that needed to be made. And so Ted Carter left. So Trev's sitting there going, okay, I had this great boss who just left. I got an interim boss who, from what I've heard, is doing an outstanding job, but he's still just an interim, and he's not getting any look at all, at least at this point, to my understanding, for the permanent position. And when it comes to finding a permanent president, that's not happening either. And so you've got this power vacuum above you, and that compromises your ability to make decisions and move forward with the construction projects, the stadium project, hiring and firing decisions, with all of your own decisions. All of that ability gets compromised when you don't have a stable integrity of power above you.
And Corey says, but Rob, that was the thing. Trev kept talking about how everyone was on the same page. Then Matt Rule kept saying it. What gives? Well, you're always going to say something that's public.
It is, and I agree with that. And I think if you look laterally across the board, when you look at the coaching staff, when you looked just within the athletic department, I think everybody was on the same page. Now, as much as we sit here and say that within the athletic department, we talk about how those leaders within the athletic department want autonomy within that department, within the university. They also understand they're still part of a bigger structure. They're still part of a bigger system. And you've got to get along with everybody within that system. When you've got this large system, and when I say a large system, the university, it's a $5 billion a year operation. I think Nebraska's budget for the 22-23 calendar year was like $5.3 billion. When you don't have stable and strong leadership of a $5 billion organization, people don't want to be in that organization.
You want to do a good job. Yeah, you want to do a good job, and you're looking around saying, "Hey, I've got this job to do, and I just don't have the support to get done."
Exactly.
Or it could be live golf level money.
Exactly. And you can have the greatest money on the planet, but when you don't have that structure in that system around you, that becomes a problem. I mean, you can't have the inmates running the prison. I mean, I don't think that's the situation that's happening. But you don't have stable leadership in any organization. People don't want to be a part of those organizations.
Yeah. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Who knows? Maybe in Dominican Sue, maybe? I don't know. I'll hang up and listen online. Thanks for taking the call.
Dude, I think Pollard would be an amazing choice.
So do I.
Here's my question. Does Pollard leave Iowa State? What's the leadership structure at Iowa State currently?
He's got a great situation right now.
Okay.
That's the
Why
thing.
would you leave that? Why would you leave any great administrative situation?
You want to know why? Because Iowa State is in the Big 12, and no matter how you look at it, as this thing moves forward, the power structure in college football is going to focus around the Big 10 and the SEC. And an athletic director makes a jump to a Big 10 school, you are in a much better situation financially. You're in a much better situation to control your destiny and control a lot of things outside the Big 12.
All right. So here's a question, Travis. This is a question you have asked, and you've asked this a lot about a lot of colleges and universities, mostly when it comes to coaching positions. Is this currently a good job?
Nebraska?
Yeah.
Yes.
The athletic directorship at Nebraska.
Yes.
Given the current leadership situation, is that a good job? So if I'm Jamie Pollard, am I going, I want to go to Nebraska where they've got an interim president? There's been a rift within the Board of Regents in terms of deciding who the next president is going to be. Is that what I want to walk into? Because why would you not want to go find another Texas A&M that has a lot of money and has a stable president, has a stable leadership?
I would say this.
There's a lot of wait for the next Big 10 or the next SEC schools AD position to open up, and then you go apply for that.
So here's what I would say. Nebraska is a great job. It is a great job. You don't have a fan problem. You don't have a money problem. You'll have all that. No AD in their right mind should take this job until a permanent president is in place. How's that?
I agree with that.
And I don't think they should hire an AD until a permanent president is in place. That you have to hire your CEO first. You have to, and the CEO is the president, right? President answers to the Board of Regents, but you cannot hire an AD until a president is hired. So the Board of Regents needs to get off its ass, get that taken care of, and then go hire an AD after that. If you jump the gun, you're fucking the whole thing up, because then you'll get a different president in. There's a different, hey, I didn't come in for this, right? You need to know what you're getting into. Trev Alberts knew what he had with Ted Carter. Knew what he had. Ted Carter hired him he worked with him when he was at UNO. Ted hired him to go to Nebraska. He knew what he had. He got the autonomy. He eliminated the answering to the chancellor, right? Because the chancellor just got in the way. So Trev says, hey, I only want to answer to Ted. Ted says, okay, that's good. I'm not saying that's what the power situation in the org chart has to look like going forward, but at least an AD should know who he's working for, who he's answering to, and what that power structure looks like.
Agreed.
And so, no, if I'm an AD out there, don't take the Nebraska job until you have a permanent president in place.
And I guess that's what I'm saying, is that if you're Jamie Pollard, are you leaving to come to Nebraska if they don't have a permanent president?
No, absolutely not. No way. 402-543-5556. Let's go to Brian. Brian, welcome to the Doc Talk podcast. What's up, man?
Hey, Rob, I haven't talked to you in 20 years almost. We were med school classmates, Brian Farrell.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Where are you at these days?
Kentucky. Neurosurgery in Paducah, Kentucky.
Love it. I have been to
Yeah.
Paducah, by the way.
What the hell? You have or have not?
I have. Oh, I mean, I was driving through. I was.
Oh. Yeah, I-24 on the way to Nashville, or
I was going. I went through. I was went through Paducah on my way to Nashville, driving my oldest daughter's car down to Tallahassee.
Awesome. All right. Well, what the hell, man? What a day. I have a couple of weird, like if you look at the vacuum in Nebraska, like Trev had an opportunity to grow or to, cut bait and leave. He could have filled the role of all these administrative vacuums and become even more of a hero figure, but I guess he either didn't want to do that or whatever, but then also my other idea is what happens to all the coaches here? What is Fred Hoiberg thinking? What happens with Matt Rule, everyone else? I mean, where does the athletic department go in this vacuum?
On the coaches side of it, that's a great question, because here's I guess I'm answering a question with a question. 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, when Scott Frost gets hired, Fred Hoiberg gets retained. If it's not Trev, does Fred get retained?
I'd like to believe so, because Trev was a more likable guy than Scott Frost.
You meant Fred.
Or Fred, sorry.
Yeah.
What did I say?
No,
Getting late, I'm jet lagged.
No, and I totally get that. It's one of those, Fred Hoiberg's still here because...
And he's the Big Ten co-coach of the year.
Yeah, because Trev kept him on. And that would have been a very easy firing. I think at the time, if it had happened, people would have been like, oh, God, Fred's this great dude. We really liked him, but shit. It just didn't seem like it was working out. Let's move on. Let's go get a basketball coach now. I'm glad they kept him. And at the time, I was glad they gave Fred a chance because, again, he seems like an amazing human, but he also seemed like he was like, God, he was just so close. And the guy had a ton of rough breaks in terms of guys transferring, injuries, things like that really kind of handicapped him a little bit there. And he made some changes and things have paid off. I don't know. It's a good question about the coaches, though.
Here's the deal. The coaches are going to wait and see who their athletic director is. Bill Moose hired Fred Hoiberg. Let's not forget that.
Yeah,
Bill Moose hired Fred Hoiberg. A lot of these coaches weren't even hired by Trev Alberts, right?
No, agreed.
Yeah, so
the vast majority of them were there before Trev hit the door.
So I think you're going to wait and see who your athletic director is before you do anything that's, a knee-jerk reaction.
Which I think most coaches, unless a decidedly better opportunity comes up, you're not leaving.
No. So I wouldn't worry about the coaches at this point because they're not that far up the food chain. And what I mean by that is Trev Alberts and the athletic directors up the food chain to where your org chart is president and then who you answer to. Coaches they don't even answer to the athletic director. They have sport leaders who they answer to, and those leaders of those sports answer to Trev Alberts. Yeah. So, listen, I think the culture of the Nebraska Athletic Department is the best we've seen it in a long time. That's the only thing I worry about. Beth Getz has a really good culture at the University of Iowa right now. Jamie Pollard has a really good one at Iowa State. You look around most successful athletic departments, you're probably seeing a good culture. Nebraska's culture was in a great spot, is in a good spot with Trev Alberts. You got to make sure somebody's able to maintain that culture. And that's where I like your idea of Doug Ewald, because you have an inside hire, right? They've been a part of that.
And it's one of these things. I don't look at it in the situation that, okay, well, we're going to go with Doug Ewald. Well, he's this inside guy. I mean, he's about as much of an outsider as you can get when it comes to
athletics.
University athletics, but also university administration. I mean, this is a guy that hasn't been in university administration for the bulk of his career. He's a total outsider, but I also think he's a guy that would do just an amazing job in that role. And he's been in it and let's be honest. I stand next to Doug Ewald and talk with him. my IQ goes up. I mean, the guy is just a freaking genius. And that's a situation where you've got a guy, because of how smart he is, his ability to move into these different sectors, take on these different roles, take on these different occupations. When you're in your background is you're an accountant, but he's able to do all of these things because he is incredibly flexible. He's incredibly smart, and he's got a high level of integrity. Anyway, I'm like totally lobbying for our guy Doug here, but we'll see what happens.
Brian, thanks for the phone call, man. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. You guys have a great night.
Thanks, you too.
All right, Brian, good to hear from you.
402-543-5556. Let's go back to the phones. Chuck down in Georgia. Welcome to the Doc Talk podcast. What's up, Chuck?
Hey guys, I'll tell you what's up. my temperature's up. First of all, you guys bring up some great points around leadership, and I'll tell you, if you talk to any president in a company, you talk about any CEO in a company, they'll tell you the most important thing is having a good board.
Yep.
And one of the things I think is very important, if you go hire a president, you better make sure he understands the importance, and you guys hit on it, the importance of athletics to the university. Yeah, you don't have to look any further than Miami to see what happened down there when they got upset about the success the Hurricanes were having and wanted to turn that back into, keep the focus on academics. What a mess. But I guess the point here is that before you even talk about, that president, I'm just concerned about that board. I'm concerned about that board of regents. And I'll tell you what, to lose Ted Carter, I know Ted Carter. I met him when he was with the Naval Academy. Fantastic individual. And then when you think about Trev underneath him, I don't know how you retain and how you keep people in a system without having a really solid board. I just want to get your guys' thoughts on
Well, and the interesting part is, Chuck, is I think 4 Board of Regents are up for re-election in the next year. So that'd be interesting to see how that vote goes, and in the campaign, if athletics is used against these Board of Regents.
There's no way it's not. I mean, look at the political climate anywhere in the country. And again, I'm not talking about whether you lean left or you lean right. Things like this are going to get used in a political campaign.
Yes.
But again, I think I totally agree with Chuck that it's the fact that if you don't have good, stable leadership, good, stable leaders underneath you are going to leave.
Yeah. I mean,
that's what happened.
But that's in life. That's anywhere you work.
Exactly. That, and Brian Farrell, Dr. Farrell, when he called in, I mean, one of the things that he talked about is when you talk about that stability of leadership, what's it like at the university right now? And are people going to want to come into that system until that stabilizes? And I don't think they're going to want to. And that I worry about that going forward, which is part of the reason why I look at somebody like Ewald and I think, God, here's a guy who's already there. That might be our best shot to get a very good leader into that role.
402-543-5556. And Chuck, thanks for the phone call. Appreciate it. Let's go back to the phones. Let's go to Adam. Adam, where are you at in Iowa? Where are you at in Iowa?
I'm in Ankeny.
Ankeny. Okay. What's up, man?
North Des Moines.
Yeah, you're in North Des Moines. You're North Des Moines.
Yep. I catch you on the radio every morning.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
The question that pops into my head is how bad is it there? If Trev has the opportunity to build his stadium, has the opportunity, or he has his hire that he wants for football, he has a great basketball coach. He's got things going for him that he's going to, and within a week, give up what he's had in the past at Nebraska and just say, nope, I'm out. Just that quickly. It's not like he's making that much more money where he's going. It just has to say, how bad are things there at his administration level that he's willing to give it up within a week?
I think it's pretty bad.
Just say, you know what? Peace out. I'm done.
I think it's pretty bad.
And that's the thing. I mean, I think
it shows you where it's bad because you're at the top level of bad.
Yeah. And one of our earlier callers made the question put the question out there that, is this Trev trying to make a statement? I don't think Trev's trying to make a statement, But his leaving is, in fact, a symptom of what's going on at the university's leadership structure.
Listen, whether he's trying to make a statement or not, he sure as hell is.
Well, it made us. Yeah, he may not have been trying to, but it definitely made one. I agree. So and again, I mean, maybe there's other reasons. I don't think there are, though.
Well, and that's the thing. I don't know what's going on with the whole lawsuit thing. I went to Nebraska. I graduated from Nebraska, but I don't listen in details to all the details that go on. So I don't know what's going on with this lawsuit. And I'm watching the feed here on the side here as people keep mentioning it, and I don't know the details of that or how severe. That may be input, but it just seems that he has everything in front of him to make Nebraska moving forward where it should be, and they just give it up to just move on just that quickly.
Yeah.
It seems like there's so much going on here.
Yeah, the lawsuit thing, you can't run away from a lawsuit. So that has no. I mean, I'm pretty confident saying at least 99.99% chance that doesn't have anything to do with this, unless it was a situation where, kind of like what Travis touched on, where Trev felt like he didn't have university support.
Game Dog says, Trev just made a loud statement, Comrade Rob. You're being called a commie, comrade.
What did he say?
He said, Trev just made a loud statement, Comrade Rob. You're a comrade. You're a commie. Commie bastard, you.
And you know us Republican doctors, we're all a bunch of crazed liberals.
See, that's the funny thing is, but you just defended like in this liberal agenda at Nebraska, and if people only knew that Rob's actually a fairly conservative.
I'm not defending one political viewpoint over another. What I'm saying is part of the reason you go to college, whatever your viewpoint is, you go there to get it challenged.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, I think
I challenge my thinking every single day.
If you're an 18-year-old with your Che Guevara T-shirt on, thinking the Cuban Revolution was the greatest thing ever, and like Bernie Sanders is your god, hey, you know what? Knock your socks off,
Bernie Sanders.
But I hope you go to university, and I hope you get those values challenged. Whether you agree with them or not, whatever your viewpoint is, I hope your viewpoint gets challenged going to school, and that's my bottom line.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it, Adam.
We're tangenting here a lot from Trev Alberts, but
yes, we have a tendency to do that around here. 402-543-5556. Let's go to Bill in Omaha. Bill, welcome to the Doc Talk Podcast. What's up?
Good evening, gentlemen. How you doing?
Good.
Hell of a day so far. Let me tell you. I'll make this very quick. This definitely took me by surprise, as it did everybody. But the one thing that I'm curious to know is these regents, because they're listening, and they're probably hearing it from a bunch of people. Do you think they understand what kind of damage they've done to the state and the university today? Do you think they fucking care? Because I honestly wonder. I've become real frustrated with the university, and I've become frustrated just with not only how things run. I'm tired of our school and our state being a laughingstock when it comes to this stuff. Isn't everybody else getting tired of this shit? What needs to happen to get this done?
So here's the thing: I think within any so regents are elected.
Yes.
I think for anybody in any elected position, there is a viewpoint of holding a place of power. And I think there's a lot of people who go into situations, go into elected positions specifically because of that. They want to be the decision makers. They want to be in the room when the decisions get made. And that's a massive, massive motivator for a lot of people. And so to answer your question, I think a lot of people are blind to that as long as they feel like they and their constituents' wishes are being met. And if that creates a divisiveness, a rift, whatever, within that particular governing body, while I'm sure on some level they care about it, I think holding on to an elected position and keeping constituents happy has a higher place of motivation than doing what's right for the university.
Well, that's the problem with politics in general.
It
but
is,
that's another thing.
And that's
all I know is
that's exactly my point, though, is that you're going to find that in any level of politics, and because you have elected officials ultimately that are the governing authority at the very top for a university, that can create problems like this.
I mean, I'm not trying to go doom and gloom here, but today is the first day in a long time where I question whether Nebraska can ever get back to any level of sustained success, let alone, I'm not even talking championships. I'm talking like 8 or 9 win seasons, because it seems like we have a bunch of clown show people involved in the decision-making process. They like the power of making decisions, but they never want to seem to be accountable when the decisions are made.
I will say
kind of like how none of them apparently have come out this.
I will say this. This is a golden opportunity for Matt Rule. Golden opportunity.
Absolutely.
In what way? Because if he wins, he becomes the most powerful person in the state. You can't tell him what to do. If he comes out and wins 9 games this year, even 10 games, I'm not saying that's going to happen. It's a power play. There's a golden opportunity here. There's a window open for Matt Rule. There really is.
What do you do with that power? Say, hey, here's the guy that should be the AD.
He calls his shots, man. He calls his shots. A new athletic director can't do shit about it. Can't do anything about it. Would you disagree with that?
I would not.
I
can tell you this, though, is that...
Yeah, I think to a degree you're right. It's just I look at people that I viewed as not necessarily great leaders at that university who were still capable of making some incredibly poor decisions when they shouldn't have. And I'm talking about guys like Steve Peterson, Harvey Perlman, etc.
Harvey's a waste. Smart dude, but he's a waste. he waste of a human, or at least a leader.
I think he made horrible decisions as a leader.
Yeah.
I think he had horrible vision as a leader.
All right, Bill. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
No, good call.
Thank you, guys.
Yep. Not a problem. So moving forward, I mean, it's a done deal now. Trev Alberts is going to Texas A&M. Going to be in the SEC. How long do you think it takes for Nebraska to get an athletic director? I guess the 2 questions. How long does it take to get a full-time president? Take the interim tag off, and how long does it take to get an athletic?
Boy, that's a tough question.
It is.
Because getting that one, we've been kind of mired in mud since Ted Carter left in that regard, in terms of finalizing that decision. That one's a tough one to answer. I've got no good answer there. My hope would be is they get somebody who's named the interim athletic director. And like I said, I've mentioned Doug already. I think he'd be an outstanding candidate. So I think if they get somebody like that in that position, I think that would bring a ton of stability to the situation.
If you are a head coach right now, who I don't know if there wasn't a coach that was thrilled with Trev. Fred Hoiberg, Matt Rule, obviously. Matt Rule came here. He specifically said he came here for Ted Carter and Trev Alberts. If you are John Cook, if you're Mark Manning, if you're Rhonda Revelle, if you're Amy Williams, are you just shocked today? Because in the next couple of days, we're going to hear what coaches say, and they're probably going to give the typical coach speak.
Yeah. I would imagine they're in that same situation where they're looking at the overall university structure. And sometimes I think maybe you get isolated a little bit as a coach. I mean, you kind of operate within your own silo within the athletic department, and maybe that upper athletic structure doesn't play into your day-to-day role as a coach all that much. But I mean, if it does, yeah, I'm worried because because here's the other thing too. Until that leadership structure changes or starts to function more with everybody moving in the same direction amongst that upper leadership, you're not going to have great AD candidates, in my opinion.
So how surprised were you this morning? Because you texted me, you said, hey, we should get Trev on. And I'm like, dude, we've been trying for years. And I didn't know what was going on. And it took me about 2 minutes.
Yeah, you sent me like, all of a sudden you're like, holy shit.
Yeah, I had no idea what was going on. But
I keep going back to those conversations I had with Brendan where he was like, man, he said it. He said, I'm worried that some corporation is going to come in and offer him that he's doing enough, that Trev is doing a good enough job as a leader of the athletic department at UNL right now that he's turning heads. I think Brendan had even told me, I might be remembering this incorrectly. I swear Brendan had told me at some point, Trev had already turned down some very good corporate offers.
Corporations aren't any fun.
And probably not.
You got to answer.
And I do think Trev loves the world of athletic department leadership.
Yeah.
I think he could get a CEO job is one thing. I think he could get a higher up job within a university. I think he likes being an AD. I think he wants to be an AD.
Well, because you're around high achievers all the time.
Yes.
And I mean, that's what you want.
Yeah, I think that's what he really, really likes. I think that's what he really, really wants. So was I surprised? If there were surprised, it was the fact that he left for another athletic department. The thing that wasn't him leaving doesn't necessarily surprise me because, again, I'd had conversations with people about that, and people were worried about Trev getting a good enough offer that he would leave because of the job that he had done down in Lincoln. It had turned heads. So that doesn't surprise me. The fact that it was A&M, the fact that it was another university, that surprises me.
402-543-5556. Let's go to Jim. What's up, Jim?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good.
Hey, I went to Creighton University. I'm from Omaha.
Good.
Went to Creighton. So I want to know the difference, how that's different with public universities and private institutions like Creighton.
Well, the best way
if that makes sense to you guys.
The best way to describe it is there's politics in both. One just is able to keep it private, and some have to. There will be Freedom of Information Act. There will be all sorts of things that are wavered against the University of Nebraska over the next several months, from the Omaha World Herald to the Lincoln Journal-Star, probably from the Athletic, from all sorts of places. It's the same shit, different show. Let's just put it that way. But the difference between Creighton and Nebraska is just money, a lot of money. Creighton has money, but it doesn't have Big Ten money.
Oh, okay, that makes sense to me. I'm just I'm wondering how they just got Greg McDermott to sign this long-term contract.
Donors ponied up.
How does that differ?
Donors ponied up. The only difference is you don't get to know how much Greg McDermott makes. We know how much Fred Hoiberg makes. We know how much Matt Rule makes. But private institutions don't have to make that information public.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that plays into this to a degree is that with a public institution like Nebraska, at the top of that leadership structure, you have elected officials. And whenever you have elected officials, even with the best of intentions, there's a lot of different motivations. There's a lot of different special interests that are pulling you in different directions.
Yeah. At Creighton, you answer to a priest. It's an appointed. It's just.
Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh out loud.
No, that's true. I mean, there's a top of a leadership structure at Creighton that is probably I shouldn't say ever so slight, is probably way more unified. Now, you may not like what that unification is, but there is a very unified power structure at the top because it's one guy.
It's interesting. You bring up Creighton, Jim, and I saw this for interim. Somebody said, go get Bruce Rasmussen as an interim.
The thought crossed my mind, but I didn't think he'd ever come out of retirement.
Well, I think it's one of those things where if you know it's going to Bob Bowlesby, who was the athletic director at Iowa, went on to Stanford, then went on to become the Big 12 commissioner, came out of retirement to be the interim athletic director at Northern Iowa because their athletic director left for Tulane. So he stepped up and said, you know what? I've been in this place before. I know it's not going to be a full-time gig. I can do it on an interim basis. Bruce might not be because culturally, that's a great fit. That is really a pretty good fit. Just going culturally, say
Bruce is an amazing.
Yes.
Well, again, you've got an amazing human being with a high level of integrity. He would be a great fit. I think.
So, hey, thanks, Jim. Appreciate the phone call, man.
I don't mean to keep going, guys, but does size matter? The scope of it? Does Creighton being small? And
No. Leadership is leadership. Either you're a good leader or you're not a good leader. It's about leadership.
Keep in mind, Trev came from UNO.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
Yeah, UNO is not the largest institution out there.
Think about Trev here in general, right? He came from UNO. He doesn't have a master's degree. He didn't have previous athletic director in administration experience before he got to UNO. It's about how you're able to bring a group together to move with a common purpose and in the same direction and motivate them. It's about leadership. It's a pretty, we overcomplicate too much shit in this world. We really do.
What?
Yes.
No.
From personality assessments to all this other thing, we overcomplicate things. We wanted to, at the end of the day, are you a leader? And Trev was a hell of a leader. 402-543. Let's go to Doug. What's going on, Doug? Welcome to the Doc Talk podcast.
Hey, Travis, just calling from Phoenix to check in. Can you tell me how the hell this happened? I'm your neighbor.
Oh, Doug. Oh, shit, Doug. What are you doing? Doug just moved. Doug, I have a feeling it might be somebody who moved into your house. How's that?
I don't think you'll see me scooping the snow this year, Travis.
So Doug, it was my next door neighbor, and Nebraska Board of Regent moved right into Doug's house. So I've got a regent as a neighbor.
Do I dare ask? Is that something we can? We probably should.
I'm not going to do that.
I don't want you to be. I don't want you to be the asshole in the neighborhood because you kind of. I mean, Doug can probably tell. She probably already were the asshole in the neighborhood.
Trust me, I'm the asshole in the neighborhood. There's no doubt about it. Doug, I wish I knew it. I tell you what, Doug. I woke up this morning. Rob texted me, and I had no idea what Rob was talking about. I've never been so floored in all my years of doing this. This is one of the top 2 shockers I've ever been around. Really is. I mean, I did not see this coming.
I was pulling into an 8:30 a.m. meeting, and a friend of mine in Tucson, a Nebraska grad, texts me and says, "Hey, Trev's going to A&M." And I'm like, "No way is Trev leaving Nebraska to go to A&M." And sure enough, 15 minutes later, I got 30 other texts saying, Trev's gone. I'm like, how the heck did that happen? So, what are we just that afraid of success anymore?
Yeah, and again, I think the bottom line, Doug, is the fact that I think Trev was, again, in any large organization, in any organization, you've got to have good leadership, and there's it's not even necessarily a question of that whether there is or isn't good leadership at the University of Nebraska right now. You don't have leadership. Period.
Exactly.
And Doug,
we don't have a direction and we don't have a purpose.
And Doug, you hit the nail on the head right there.
Doug, I'm going to ask you a tough question here, and just because you're on the phone, you don't live here anymore. You were a president of Doug was a president of a pretty large public utility company, but you had to answer to a board. Much like a president at the University of Nebraska, an athletic director, how hard is it when you're a president, but you still have to answer to a board to play that politics and lead the way you want to lead?
Like you were saying, Doc, there's this ability to be a leader and look at the folks that he or she reports to and work within the confines of those elected officials to get to the result that you got a job to do and you got to get it done. And it's your job to lead the crew through that. And Trev had demonstrated he could do that. He had Nebraska on the path to success. I mean, it's pretty easy to see when you look what the volleyball team did, you look what both basketball teams did this fall and winter, going into the NCAA tournament. You look at where the football team was positioned. I don't know how you let Trev Alberts get away.
It is shocking.
It's mind-boggling. And A&M must have wanted him pretty bad if they paid $4 million to wrap up his contract. So
think about the money.
I just wanted to call in.
Go ahead, Doug.
Pardon?
No, go ahead.
I don't mean to hog up your time.
No, that's good. Yeah.
I saw you two online.
Yeah, that's good.
And I wanted to check in with my friend, who I don't think is the neighborhood asshole, but
thank you, Doug. I appreciate that.
Well, Doug, I disagree with you on some stuff, and I don't even live in the neighborhood.
Hey, Doug, tell Robin and the kids hi, will you please? We miss you. We lose him? I think we might have lost him.
We might have lost him. Again, it's one of those, how do you lose a good leader like that? And it's, well, when there's lack of leadership above you.
And that's why people are upset. People know a good one got away, right?
I think
people
so.
Know a good one.
Which, and I mean, I see it. I mean, God, some of the comments, it's the nonstop, like, God, he's a traitor. Screw him. He can kiss our ass. I understand. I mean, there's kind of I had a couple of Twitter conversations with a few people earlier today discussing the whole, like, I mean, kind of the fallout from UNO, and a lot of people were like, oh man, dude, bury the hatchet. Everybody got over that a long time ago. It's like, there's a lot of people who still haven't. And I understand that as well. But I do think he had done a very good job down in Lincoln. And yeah. I think he did a great job. I thought he did a great job. I thought he was a great hire. I thought he was the best guy for the job. I'm upset that I think we lost a good one as well. And I think a lot of the people who are sitting here looking at this from the standpoint of, he's a traitor, screw him. How do you turn your back on the university? There's reasons why he made that decision.
Well, so now we've gone for about an hour and a half, and I'm jet lagged as fuck. So I'm gonna I tell you what, so we topped out right around 7,300 people watching at one time.
We did okay.
For our little YouTube channel, that's not too bad.
We'll have to touch on this again. I'm sure we will be talking about this in future podcasts.
You think?
I don't think this is over yet.
Hey, by the way, speaking of the Doc Talk podcast, we've done a number. This is one of the few. This is the only podcast this year we haven't had a guest on. If you haven't listened to the podcast, go back and listen to the Brendan Stye interview, the Tony Beelan interview, the Bruce Chubbuck interview, the Kyle Peterson interview, the Damon Benning interview. I hope you'll find them interesting. I sure as hell did. Good stuff there. Just go to podbean.com, search Husker Doc Talk. You can find them on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartMedia, Podbean. You can find them wherever it's at. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We appreciate your support. Thanks for listening and watching tonight. Betfred Sports is a sponsor of this podcast. Go to betfredsports.com to find out if Betfred Sports is legal where you're watching. I want to thank our good friends, Husker Hounds. Also, Connor Orr, good attorney friend. We need to get him in here to talk about NIL soon. And Citrus Federal Credit Union, who sponsors the doctor's diagnosis during the season. Dr. Rob won't even drink a beer because he must be on call. I just figured that one out. I had my wife bring him like a six-pack.
Dude, I said that like 3 times during the show.
Sorry, man. I didn't know.
I'm crushing the pib.
All right. For Dr. Rob Zatechka, I'm Travis Justice. We will talk to you next time on the Doc Talk podcast presented by Betfred Sports.